Welcome to Life, Lessons, and Laughter with your host, Glenn Ambrose.
Hey, hey everybody. What's happening? Here we are. This is Law 5 out of 5. So this is the last one. So here we go. Here's the wrap up. So if you haven't listened to the first 4, I suggest you do. And these are based on Bashar's 5 spiritual laws, because I chose these 5 spiritual laws because if you look them up, you're going to see they all boil down to these anyway. That's the thing with spiritual laws, is that it just depends on how deep you go. So you can start out with, I saw one that was 36 spiritual laws. Well, if you get into detail and you talk about those, you can whittle those down into 16, and then into 8, and then into 4, because you'll see even this, even this list, in a way, it's kind of like 4. And then these 4, technically, if you got into a deep enough conversation and you followed these deeply enough, you could actually get them all down to 1, and that is all is love. So you can, as you explore these, they tend to overlap and merge into one another. That's how this is why if we want to get closer to the truth, we simplify. Further from the truth, we complicate. So here we go. So what I'm going to do is just briefly read through the first 4, just the title and a very brief explanation. I'm going to read through those first 4 because the first 4 have to do with the last one. I'll say the last one. Everything changes except the first 4 laws. That is Law 5. So it's debatable if it's even a law, but it's something that is factual about this body of information. So since everything changes except the first 4 laws, and we'll get into that, I want to look at, and plus, since this is the last podcast in this series, I just want to remind you guys and touch on what the first 4 are, what the things are that never change, right? So the first one is you exist. You always have, and you always will. Existence itself is an eternal constant. Your consciousness is immortal. That's law number 1. Law number 2, everything is here and now. Time is a linear progression, past and future. I always misread that. Time as a linear progression, past and future, is an illusion. All experiences and parallel realities exist simultaneously in the present moment. Law number 3, the one is all and the all are the one. All consciousness is interconnected and a part of a single unified whole. We are all interchangeable reflections of each other and the universe itself. Never changes. And law number 4, what you put out is what you get back. Reality acts as a reflection of your dominant vibration, beliefs, and expectations. Your external experience mirrors your internal state, similar to the law of attraction. So here we are. Law number 5. Everything changes except the first 4 laws. the only constant in the physical universe is change. Think about that for a moment. The only constant in the physical universe is change. The first four laws are immutable, but everything else is subject to transformation. So these first four laws, you can latch on to them, you can live from them, you can breathe from them, you can do everything from them because they will never change. That's why it's your foundation. That's your seat of safety. That's your spiritual existence. That's your eternal aspect. That is where we function from. That's our basis of reality. And if we do it that way, we live in peace and love and harmony and abundance, and everything's wonderful. Okay, so that's our basis, that's our foundation, that's our truth, that's where we live from, that's what we anchor into, that's it. Now, we're also that's our spiritual being, and the rules and the functions and the laws of that, of being a spiritual being forever, eternally. Now, we happen to be having a human incarnation here. We're having a human experience here on earth in this physical reality. And while we're here incarnating, we're going to be interacting with a transitory life where everything changes constantly. Something slow, sometimes fast, sometimes they'll change fast for a while and then slow. But everything else other than these four laws is subject to transformation, subject to change. Now, if we embrace that in a healthy way, it enhances the first four, because we've got this four, everything's cool. We're functioning from a good place. We have all our needs are met. We're living in abundance. We're in alignment with God, and everything is love. It's beautiful, right? Now we've got this. We're also here on earth, and we're interacting with this whole, it's surfacey, but it's a form of reality. It's just a surfacey transitory reality, and everything in it is subject to change. Sometimes things won't change, or seemingly won't change in our lifetime. Like we could have a mountain in our backyard that was here when we were children, and then it's still here when we die. And that mountain changed, but we can't see it with the naked eye. So we think it stayed the same our whole life. But not only has it changed, because mountains do change, but somebody could have came along and dug a road in the side of it and really changed it, or blew it up. Like, all kinds of things could happen. It's subject to change. Sometimes that change happens, sometimes it doesn't. This is our relationships. We never know if a relationship is going to be for the rest of our lives. Nobody knows that. It's funny, it's like whenever people in some ways, I think I kind of, how do I express this? In some ways, I'm just an average guy, in this reality like everybody else. And some people don't even know that I'm spiritual. But in some ways I am. So not everybody gets to see every aspect of me, I guess. Is kind of my point. And this change that's taken place, like it kind of of course, as a teacher, I'm going to try to teach things that are going to help you. I'm not going to like a lot of time, like if I make a mistake, if I can use that as a teaching tool, then I'll share it. But I'm not going to spend all my time sharing what I do wrong. Like, why? Like, that's not going to help you. I'm not trying to teach you how to do stupid stuff. I'm trying to teach you how to do good stuff. So I'm not going to teach you where, like where I fall short. Like I said, unless it's an example of that I can use to teach. But people because of that, I guess, and the public persona that I have, people will often look at me as, well, I'm not going to try to be too picky with my words here. I'm just going to try to get the point across. So some people will view me as a success story, right? Success story for alcoholism or addiction, success story uh, of single parenting or parent alienation, or a success story for starting my own business, or whatever, and one of the big parts of my life has been being a parent. So like, and by no means did I do everything perfectly, but I have had some, I did get some spiritual insights and apply spiritual principles in ways that I think made me a better parent. And my son's doing wonderful, and it's just so beautiful to see him just embracing life like in his own way, and it's just amazing. So it's wonderful to see that. But like I said, people will sometimes think of me as a success story, and then they'll compare, right? We compare and we'll go, well, I'm having a difficult time being a parent, or I'm having a difficult time navigating my life, and then being a parent on top of that, I don't have confidence in myself because I'm having enough trouble with life. How could I possibly be confident in taking care of another or guiding another life, right? And so they'll kind of look at me like spiritual Glenn had the spiritual tools, so of course he was able to be a good parent. And I remind them, I'm like, there was 2 years while my son was alive, maybe even 2.5, where my son was alive on this planet, and I was, one, still completely closed off to spirituality, and two, I was still drinking and doing a massive amounts of drugs that I got back into towards the end. I didn't do drugs for many years, but I dove into them again towards the end. But so like, like sometimes I remind people of that just to bring them back down. Stop this comparing crap. Stop putting me on a pedestal like I'm different or something, and that's why I was able to do it. No, man, I was out there running around drinking and doing drugs when I had a little kid that should be taken care of, where I had a baby, sometimes at home for the first 9 months. And then my ex moved up to Rhode Island, and I was in Florida for the next, almost 2 years, somewhere between a year and a half and 2 years, I think. So struggling with addiction. I tried even moving up to Rhode Island once within those 2 years. And I was drunk so much that I couldn't even stay sober long enough to go see him. And he lived about 15 minutes away from me. And I very rarely saw him because I was so wrapped up in alcoholism, like I couldn't stay sober. Like once I got enough alcohol into my system where my nerves would calm, where I would think about being able to go see him, like I'd have to keep the alcohol into my system, and then I'd have one or two more drinks, and I would have to get so wasted just to calm my nerves, just so the impending doom wasn't overtaking me. I used to have to drink a lot to just get to that point where I could just take a deep breath. And then I would have one or two more drinks and I'd pass out because I had so much alcohol in me. So like, I literally couldn't stay sober enough to go see this kid. And I loved him more than life itself. Like, that's how wrapped up in my addiction I was. That's how lost I was. That's how messed up I was. So don't look at me like I had some, like that's where I came from. That was my starting ground. Right. And which kind of leads me to the other 4 laws that I kind of touched on these things, especially when I was talking about the dominant vibration, right? In law 3, what you put out is what you get back. Reality acts as a reflection of your dominant vibration. My dominant vibration was 35 years of hell. not constant when I was a child, but severe conditioning and depression and difficulties when even during what when I was outside of the house and outside of school was a really fun, enjoyable childhood. What was going on internally and in school was extremely mentally and emotionally abusive childhood. So like, so the, I just kind of want to say I did, there were a lot of good aspects of my childhood too. um, because I think that's important. But I had suffered a lot for 35 years. So that was my dominant vibration, all these negative outlooks and feeling I'm not worthy of love and all this stuff and lying to myself and blah, blah, blah. And then somehow I was able to have spiritual awakenings. This is why diving into these 5 laws is so important. It's the most important thing we can ever do. It's the thing that gives us the life that we want. We're so busy trying to straighten out all the things that are changing in life. Like I say, like if we're lucky enough to get all our ducks in a row in life, one of those ducks is going to like keel over of a heart attack or stub a webbed foot, or like something's going to happen where those ducks are going to fall out of line. It's going to happen. Why? Because everything changes in this reality. It's never going to stay the same. So if your goal for peace and happiness is getting all your external ducks in a row, you're screwed, because most likely it's never going to happen. But if it does, it ain't going to stay like that. Fact. It can't. We live in an ever-changing reality. So if you ever get the right job and the right spouse and the right kid and the right car and the right house and the right neighbors, and nobody's pissing you off for a whole week, the one thing that you can be sure of is next week somebody's going to come kick your duck, man. And it's going to suck when they kick your duck. Everything changes. This is why we cannot base our happiness on external circumstances. If we expect to be happy, we need to have it within us. It needs to be based on the first 4 laws because they are non-changing. They are permanent. We have to anchor into those. We have to. That has to be the foundation of how we interact with this transitory, ever-changing life. Otherwise, we're never going to feel safe. We're never going to feel like, calm or peaceful, because we're constantly trying to navigate things that are constantly changing, and then we get them in place and then they change again, and it's endless. It's exhausting. I heard something the other day that reminded me of something that I felt, like especially before, it's and occasionally now, where when you've been on this planet for a while and you really try to do the right things and you try to do the good things, and all of a sudden you wake up one day and it's been many years and you're like, I don't think anything's really changed, like I've been working really hard to be a good person and to do the right things, and like my life hasn't really changed that much. Except I'm just a little more tired. But this is exhausting. Like, is this all there is? And that's the question that it boils down to, right? Have you, like, probably all of you listening, probably most people on the planet, or at least well, oh, I can't even use the word civilized, more developed countries. If you live in one of the more developed countries, I would venture to say that almost everybody has woken up one day and just went, is this all there is? Like, is this it? Is this what life's about? Like, we get to that point, right? And that's because it's a constant juggling act. And we never actually make any ground because everything's always changing. If that's our reality, it's tiring, man. It's not all there is. But when we anchor into the first 4 laws, and we start functioning from the concept of that I am eternal. I'm safe. I can open and love. Everything is here and now. Like I just have to focus on what I'm doing right now and do it to the best of my ability. Don't worry about the future. I'll take care of it when it gets here. Don't stress about the past. It's no longer here. It's not happening anymore. And of course, there's a lot more to all these things, but I'm just touching on them briefly. Everything is one. I can experience a beautiful love-based reality if that is my dominant vibration. Like if we stop focusing on those and making those the main reasons, ways, techniques, principles in which we interact with this transitory life, then we're just kind of playing with life like it's a game, because it is. It's temporary. It doesn't mean that much. It's just an opportunity for us to learn how to be peaceful and unconditionally loving and giving, and become better versions of our soul, regardless of the external circumstances of what are being shown, to be in control of our own existence, to expand our consciousness, to connect to our consciousness that's on the other side, that's eternal, to connect to that oneness, to feel the presence of that oneness, to be the calm in the eye of the storm, to be that. That's why we're here. That's why everything's changing, because it doesn't want us trying to control it, because we can't. If we're able to control everything and get all our ducks in a row and leave them there, it'd be boring anyway. We'd work and we'd get them there, and then we wouldn't have anything to do. We're just like, well, I know what's going to happen. Nothing. But when we're safe because of the first four laws, and then we can interact with this transitioning reality all the time, we don't take it that seriously, then it's fun. This is the whole point of going on vacation. This is the whole point of going to the movies or a play. Maybe a plays might be the best example, just because there's live people in there instead of people up on a screen, right? So they're telling a story, and you get lost in the story of the play, and you got all these people, and then all of a sudden somebody pulls out a gun and they shoot it, or a cannon goes off, and you don't dive under the seat. You don't actually think you're in danger, even though you're immersed in the story. You feel happiness when they're singing about joy, and you feel sadness when they're singing about something difficult, and and you go on this kind of emotional experiential roller coaster. That's why we go to plays, right? But we don't forget that we're sitting in our seat of safety, that we're okay. We don't think that the people on the stage are going to come out into the audience and shoot us or attack us. That's just this part of the story that's going on stage. So we have space in between us and what's transpiring on the stage. Not just space like physical, but I mean space like consciously. We have space. So if you're trying to understand consciousness, that's one good way to look at it. That's what we can create space in between our life and what's transpiring. We can create conscious space. There's a little gap. And when there's that little gap, then we can choose how we want to interact consciously, out of love, out of presence, out of the present moment, out of being connected to divine wisdom. And we're kind of the observer of what's transpiring, because we know it's not the end all be all. Oh, somebody's going to call me a name, and then I just won't let it affect me, and it'll pass right through. Wow. Well, that was kind of cool. And we're caught up and lost in the experience, instead of going, oh my God, somebody hurt my feelings. They called me a name. Oh, I'm hurt. Oh, I'm less than what I was before they called me that name. It made me feel bad, and they're in control of my emotions. And this is horrible experience that I'm experiencing. Whoa. None of that's real, man. Don't lean into it and get all caught up in it. keep that space in between you and it, and you can see that it's not real. It's just this transitory play on life that's transpiring, and you can interact with it when you want, when you choose to, when it's pleasurable, but you don't have to. You're not sucked in and pulled in unconsciously and then dependent on your unconscious reactions based on your past experiences to try to deal with it. Oh, it's so stressful and difficult. So we need to keep that space between us and what's going on and be the observer of it and just play, practice. Practice being conscious while moving. Practice feeling the light of consciousness. Practice being the observer of yourself while you brush your teeth. Oh, and you move too quick. Oh, and you lost it. Okay, stop for a moment. Just get that space back again. Be the observer again. Then watch yourself brush your teeth. Do it in the shower. Do it when you're walking to your car. Practice having space in between you and what's happening instead of getting sucked into it and thinking it's all real. And you have to try to control it. And something might happen that you don't like, and it might make you feel bad. And then you might experience this emotion of yuckiness inside you that you don't like, and then you have to try to push it down or get rid of it or think of something else because you don't like the experience that you're having inside of your own body. Like, we don't have to go through all that all the time. We don't have to go through all that. It's just life is a play on itself. And sure, we can interact and stick our hands in there when it's fun and do stuff, but it's not that serious. It's not eternal. And like a lot of people when they go on vacation, if you have people that are controlling, they can bring that aspect of control onto their vacation, and they won't like traveling. They won't like vacation. They'll probably have a crappy time because they're trying to control things in an environment that they're not familiar with. And it's much less likely to be able to control things than you can when you're at home. So you're going to have even more unrest because you can't control things. And that's where you derive your sense of safety, from the illusion of control. We can't control. Everything's ever changing. We can't control things, but we have the illusion that we can because, one, we're intelligent. And then so we can create patterns that can duplicate. So then it gives us the illusion of being able to control things. And then if something goes off, we panic because we thought we could control things and we find out we can't. And that's another thing about developed countries. Everything is systematic, and it gives us this illusion that we can control things. We know what to expect in the future, and we don't. Why? Because of this law. Everything changes except the first 4 laws. So everything on the surface, we can't control that. We don't know what's going to happen next. We have to be pliable and go with the changes. I heard this nature expert say, they say the strongest survives in nature. And he said, that's not true at all. It's the most adaptable that survives in nature. That's what survives long term. It's not the strongest. It's the most adaptable, right? And that's what it's the same with us. Nature is like that. We can learn a lot from nature. Nature, the most adaptable survives. They have the best life experience here on earth, is the most adaptable. We must do the same. The most adaptable, the most pliable. And we don't have to change who we are. That's not what adaptable means. It's just being able to ebb and flow with the changes that are happening, that are going to happen. They're unavoidable, right? This is something I have to work on. My father was very intelligent, and so he could control things so well, and he dropped into that. And when I was young, there was a lot of that. We were always on time. We were always like, it was very structured and very controlled. And of course I rebelled against that, but as I got older, I kind of turned into him in a lot of ways. And it's like, so that's something I have to watch. It's like when you start And I'm good with patterns too, which like some of the things that I'm good at can also be detrimental if I take them too far. It's like anything. We're looking for the middle ground. So like my my ability to see things, patterns, and dissect things and all that stuff. Like there's a lot of benefits that can come with that. But if I take it too far, it turns into control. Me thinking that I can control my experiences, and then all of a sudden my experience here on Earth gets unpleasant because unconsciously I'm trying to control things that I shouldn't be trying to control. And that takes effort. And then something goes wrong. And, on an unconscious level, I don't know, there's a part of me that thinks maybe I failed or it wasn't fair or whatever. All those problems that bubble up when you think you can control things and you find out you actually can't. I start experiencing some of that. Then I'm like, oh, whoa, wait a minute. I started controlling stuff. I got to pull back here because I can't control them. I have to anchor back into my 4 laws. I have to anchor back into my spiritual reality, put a little space in between me and life, and understand that this stuff isn't that important. There I drop into my peace again. Right. So it's like being at that play, or, like I was saying, going on vacation. A lot of people will let go of control when they go on vacation because it's a completely new scenario. They can't just, oh, I want coffee and just go make coffee, or I'm hungry and just go eat, or I want to go here and then just hop in the car and go. Like you can't do any of that. You have to be in the present moment, and you have to go, okay, I want coffee. In this environment, how would I acquire a cup of coffee if I wanted one? So it's not a given. Now, so if you're in the right space and it's just an adventure and you're inquisitive, then that's enjoyable. It's fun. But if you're a control freak and you want a cup of coffee and you're pissed off that you can't just press a button because they don't have a coffee machine in your hotel room and you thought they would, and you're all pissed off because that didn't go the way that you thought it should, well, then it's going to wreck your vacation, right? So this is why I talk about vacation, because like when you go on vacation, you can let go of control and you just learn to handle things in the present moment, how they're unfolding. And, you don't know what to expect next. So you're a lot of people are more fluid and going with it. And then if they experience something they don't like, they don't want it to wreck their whole vacation, right? They're only there for 5 days. They don't. So if they have a bad meal, they're not going to bitch about that bad meal for 5 days unless they're a control freak. But like most people that enjoy traveling and going on vacation will just put it behind them. They'll be like, oh yeah, so I had one meal that I didn't really like that much. No problem. I just won't go back there. We'll just go eat somewhere else. That's all. It was an experience. I tried it, whatever. It's not the end all be all. See, that's how we should be acting in everyday life. But now, we often experience stress when something doesn't go a particular way. It's because we're trying to control constantly changing things. And we forgot that they're constantly changing. This is why, I think broccoli is my favorite vegetable. You get into patterns. I use broccoli a lot. I think it's funny. You get upset because there's no broccoli at the grocery store, or you get upset at a restaurant because they ran out of steak or they ran out of their pad thai or something, and you're, this is ridiculous. What kind of restaurant doesn't have this? Somebody's a moron. And it's like, just you're just upset because you had an expectation and your expectation wasn't met, because you live in an ever-changing reality and you never know what's going to happen. Sometimes the broccoli delivery gets delayed. Sometimes more people, order pad thai than has ever happened before. Or the delivery truck blew a tire, or like, we don't know. And if we understand that we don't know and we stop trying to control things to give us our sense of safety, we can only derive our sense of safety in God, in the permanent. We can never derive safety from an ever-changing reality. So if we anchor into the eternal for our sense of safety and then play around with the ever-changing reality in the way that it is ever-changing, it's just this is, to me, this is why I love spirituality, because when you lay it all out like this, to me, it just makes perfect sense. It's like, no wonder why we're suffering. No, and me included. When I suffer, it's not real difficult to figure out why I'm suffering if I just keep it simple. If I look at these 4 laws, right? And then the 5th law of everything changing, the 4 eternal laws, and then the 5th law about everything changing except those 4 laws. And I look at that. If I'm suffering, I can figure out exactly what I'm doing wrong out of this, out of just these 5 things. If I'm suffering, I'm probably trying to control something that I can't control. That's probably the number one reason why I'm suffering. But why am I trying to control something that I can't control? Well, it's probably because I don't feel safe. Well, why don't I feel safe? Well, it's because I'm not connected to my creator. I don't feel that presence of love and safety and I'm not connected to my eternal nature, which makes me feel safe and calm and loved. So then I try to give myself the illusion of safety by trying to control things in an ever-changing reality, which I can't. So therefore, I get frustrated or scared, and I experience feelings inside of my body that I don't like. You're welcome. Like, that's it. That's it, man. That's life in a nutshell. So I hope you guys enjoyed this little series of 5. And yeah, it was fun for me. So that's going to do it. I will talk with you guys later. Peace.